Admiral James Harrison's knuckles whitened against the polished mahogany of the UN Security Council table. On the massive display screen above, the Galactic Council representative's tentacles rippled with what Harrison had learned to recognize as smug satisfaction. "Let me be certain I understand," Harrison said, his voice cutting through the tense silence of the chamber. "You're demanding Earth pay tribute in the form of 30% of our global GDP in raw materials and technological assets?" "This is correct, Admiral Harrison." The alien's translation matrix rendered its voice in smooth, cultured tones. "Earth has benefited from Galactic Council protection for 50 years. It is time you contributed appropriately to the collective security of this sector." Harrison glanced at the other Security Council members. Arabic, Chinese, Russian, French, representatives from every major power sat frozen in their seats. 50 years of peaceful contact with the galactic community had lulled humanity into a false sense of security. Now, the bill has come due. "And if we refuse?" The alien's skin shifted to a deeper shade of blue. "Then the Council will be forced to reconsider Earth's protected status. There are many species who would appreciate unrestricted access to your system's resources." Harrison pushed back from the table, standing to his full height. The movement was deliberate, measured. He'd spent decades in diplomatic meetings with various alien species. They all responded to physical dominance displays, whether they admitted it or not. "You'll have our answer in 24 hours, Harrison said. The alien's tentacles writhed. "You have 12. The display went dark. Instant chaos erupted in the chamber as representatives began shouting over each other in multiple languages. Harrison ignored them all, pulling his secure comm unit from his pocket. His fingers flew across the surface, inputting a series of commands he'd hoped never to use. "Theseus Protocol initiated." "Admiral!" The Chinese representative's voice cut through the din. "What are we going to do? Our combined military forces are nothing compared to even a minor council member's fleet." Harrison allowed himself a small smile. "Who said anything about our military forces?" He strode from the chamber, already keying his comm again. "Webb, meet me in the vault. It's time." The vault lay 300 meters beneath the Pacific Ocean floor. Harrison's private shuttle dropped him at the seabed entrance, where Admiral Marcus Webb already waited. Webb's rumpled uniform and disheveled gray hair marked him as one of those rare technical geniuses who could ignore military protocol when it suited them. "Oh, they finally did it," Webb said as they cleared the biometric scans. It wasn't a question. 12 hours to respond. Harrison matched Webb's pace through the stark white corridors. "Is it ready?" Webb's laugh echoed off the walls. "Ready? We've been refining this system for 40 years, ever since that first council ship entered our space. We knew this day would come." He paused at a massive vault door, pressing his palm to the scanner. "The real question is, are you ready to commit to this level of deception?" The vault door swung open with a pneumatic hiss, revealing a cavernous chamber filled with rows of quantum servers. At the center, a holographic display showed a real-time view of Earth orbit. "The Council thinks we spent the last 50 years playing catch-up with their technology," Harrison said, studying the display. "They think we're still struggling with basic antimatter containment and gravitic propulsion." Webb grinned. "But instead, we poured everything into this." He tapped commands into a console. The orbital display filled with wireframe outlines, hundreds of them. "Project Theseus, the greatest light show in human history." Harrison watched as the wireframes began to fill with detail. Massive battleships took shape, each one a masterpiece of holographic engineering. Energy signatures, heat blooms, gravitational distortions, every reading a council sensor could detect, perfectly simulated. "How many can we deploy?" Harrison asked. "Oh, 500 capital ships, twice that many support vessels." Webb's fingers danced across the controls. "All controlled from here. Every system is designed to read as real to their sensors. We've had 50 years to study their detection capabilities, after all." Harrison nodded slowly. "And the power requirements?" "That's the beauty of it." Webb pulled up another display, showing power distribution across Earth's grid. "We've been building fusion plants and claiming they're for civilian power. The Council never questioned why we needed so many. They thought we were just an energy-hungry species." Warning klaxons shattered the moment. Red lights strobed through the chamber as technicians burst into frantic activity. Webb's console erupted with alerts. "What is it?" Harrison demanded. Webb's face paled. "Council ships just emerged from FTL at the system edge. A lot of them." He looked up, meeting Harrison's eyes. "They're not waiting for our answer." Harrison's jaw tightened. "How long until they reach Earth orbit?" 2 hours at their current velocity. Then we don't have a choice." Harrison squared his shoulders. "Launch the fleet." Webb's hands slammed into the big red button, even labeled as such with a piece of Scotch tape and hasty Sharpie. Above them, the orbital display blazed with activity as hundreds of holographic warships materialized in high Earth orbit, each one a testament to human ingenuity and dedication to a single, all-consuming deception. "Energy signatures nominal," Webb reported. "Heat blooms registering correctly. Gravitational distortion fields are active." He paused, checking another reading. "They've detected us. Council fleet is reducing speed." Harrison allowed himself a grim smile. "Open a channel to every council ship in range. Let's show them humanity's response to demands for tribute." The massive holographic fleet began to move, forming up into attack formations that had been practiced countless times in simulation. To any observer, it would appear that Earth had somehow hidden an enormous military buildup. The ultimate bluff was about to be called. "Channel open," Webb said softly. Harrison drew himself up to his full height. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of every human who had ever faced down a bully. "This is Admiral James Harrison of the Earth Defense Fleet to all Council vessels. You have entered restricted space. Your demand for tribute is rejected. Turn back now, or discover exactly what humanity has been preparing for the last 50 years. Webb killed the transmission. For a long moment, silence filled the vault as they waited for a response. Finally, the sensors showed the Council fleet decelerating hard. "They're stopping," Webb whispered. "Just short of Mars orbit." Harrison nodded slowly. "Now comes the hard part." He turned to face the assembled technicians and officers. "We have to maintain this deception until they withdraw completely. One mistake, one glitch in the holographic matrix, and everything falls apart." Webb's console chimed. "Incoming transmission from the Council fleet." "Put it through." The alien commander's image appeared above them, its tentacles writhing in what Harrison recognized as agitation. "This is impossible," it said. "Our intelligence indicated no such fleet existed." "Your intelligence was wrong." Harrison kept his voice level. "Earth has never needed Council protection. We allowed you to believe we were less advanced than we are because we value peace. Do not mistake that preference for weakness." The alien's skin rippled through several colors. The Council will not stand for this deception. There has been no deception, Harrison replied smoothly. We simply chose not to share our military capabilities. Now you know them. I suggest you choose your next actions carefully. The transmission cut off. Webb looked up from his console. They're holding position, but their weapons are powered up. Harrison studied the tactical display. 500 holographic warships against a real Council fleet. The greatest bluff in human history, backed by nothing but light and clever energy signatures. And so it begins, he said softly. Humanity's first real test on the galactic stage. Not with weapons, but with wisdom. Not with force, but illusion. Webb nodded grimly. The next few hours will determine whether we've spent 40 years preparing for the right kind of war. Above them, the holographic fleet continued its perfect charade, each false ship a testament to human ingenuity and the power of perception over reality. The real battle, the battle of wits and nerve, was just beginning. Crix Tal's sensory tendrils coiled tightly against his skull as he studied the sensor readings for the 4th time. The numbers couldn't be right, yet they refused to change. "High Commander," he called out, his voice carrying across the Council flagship's bridge. "There's something about these Earth vessels." High Commander Vex Lord glided across the command deck, looming over Crix Tal's station. "Speak plainly, Sensor Master." "The energy signatures are perfect, sir. Too perfect." Crix Tal pulled up comparative analyses. "Every ship in their fleet broadcasts exactly the same power curve. No variations, no fluctuations." Vex Lore's primary eyes narrowed. "Natural variation should exist between vessels, even of the same class." "Precisely." Crix Tal highlighted specific data streams. "It's as if—" A proximity alarm cut him off. On the main display, the Earth fleet was moving, shifting into an aggressive formation that bracketed the Council ships on 3 axes. "Message from the Earth flagship," the communications officer announced. Admiral Harrison's image appeared on the bridge's main screen. He stood with the same rigid posture as before, but now a slight smile played at the corners of his mouth. "Your vessels have not withdrawn," Harrison said. "We consider this an aggressive action." Vexlor's skin flushed dark with anger. "You dare threaten the Galactic Council? We who upheld order in this sector for 10,000 years before your species learned to split the atom." "We're not threatening anything." Harrison's smile widened fractionally. "We're simply demonstrating our capability to defend our interests. Admiral Webb, if you would." The sensor displays exploded with new readings as the Earth fleet powered up weapon systems. Energy readings that made Crix Tal's tendrils spasm in disbelief. "Impossible," he whispered. "Those power levels would tear the ships apart." Webb appeared beside Harrison in the transmission. "Actually, we've solved the containment issue that plagued early antimatter weapons. Would you like a demonstration?" In perfect synchronization, every Earth vessel's weapon ports began to glow with contained plasma. The display was magnificent, awe-inspiring, and, Crix Tal suddenly realized, completely wrong. "High Commander," he said urgently, "the weapon signatures, they're—" "Shut up," Vexlor hissed. "Not now." Harrison's expression remained neutral. "You have 1 hour to withdraw beyond Neptune's orbit. After that, we cannot guarantee your safety." The transmission cut. Vexlor immediately turned to Crix Tal. "What were you trying to say?" "The weapon signatures, sir.
They're radiating in the visible spectrum.
So?
Real antimatter containment fields don't do that. They can't.
Krickstall whirled his console around to show.
I've been analyzing every reading. The fleet's energy signatures are perfect mathematical constructs. No random variation. No quantum fluctuation. It's all
A projection, Vexlor finished. His secondary eyes blinked rapidly. They're bluffing.
maybe.
Krickstall hesitated.
But if they can project false ships this convincingly, their actual technological capability might be
Beyond what we imagined, Vexlor said softly. To create holograms that can fool our best sensors, to coordinate them all in real time. He turned to his tactical officer. How certain are you that they're projections?
90%, sir.
The tactical officer's tendrils twisted anxiously.
But that 10% doubt.
Deep in the vault beneath the Pacific, Webb's hands trembled slightly as he adjusted power flow through the holographic projectors. They're scanning us with everything they've got. Active sensors, gravimetric analysis, quantum field detection. Harrison stood rigid, watching the tactical display. Can we hold up under that level of scrutiny? Well, for now. Webb wiped sweat from his forehead. But they're starting to notice the patterns. Natural systems have inherent random variations. Perfect mathematical constructs don't. How long? Harrison cut to the chase. Webb checked his readings. Maybe 30 minutes before the anomalies become too obvious to ignore. We need them to withdraw before... Alarms blared. On the display, one of the Council ships launched a probe directly toward the nearest Earth vessel. They're testing us, Harrison growled. Webb? I'm trying. Webb's fingers danced across the controls, adjusting holographic density, simulating debris deflection. The probe passed straight through the Earth ship's projected shield boundary. On the Council flagship, Krickstall's triumphant cry was cut short as every sensor display suddenly went dark. When they came back online seconds later, the Earth fleet had completely reorganized its formation. What happened? Vexlor demanded.
Some kind of massive electromagnetic pulse, Krickstall reported. It must have interfered with the probe's telemetry. No data was transmitted back.
Webb sagged in his chair. That bought us maybe 10 minutes. They know something's wrong now. They just can't prove it yet. Harrison nodded grimly. Then we make our final play. He turned to the communications officer. Get me the High Commander. No video this time, audio only. Vexlor's voice filled the vault. Your deception is exposed, Admiral. Your probe detected exactly what we wanted it to detect, Harrison interrupted smoothly. Did you really think we'd let you scan our actual defensive capabilities? Everything you've seen so far has been a carefully crafted distraction. Would you like to see our real fleet? Webb's head snapped up. What are you doing? Harrison muted the transmission. Taking a page from your book. Sometimes the best way to sell a lie is to pretend you're revealing the truth. He unmuted. High Commander, I'm transmitting coordinates now. Look beyond the 8th planet. Webb caught on. His fingers flew across the controls, creating a new set of holographic signatures far out in the solar system. Larger signatures, more powerful readings, all carefully designed to appear like they were trying to hide. Krickstall's tendrils went rigid.
Sir, multiple new contacts detected beyond Neptune. They're huge.
Vexlor stared at the readings in silence for a long moment. Finally, he turned to his navigation officer. Plot a withdrawal course, full speed.
Sir?
The tactical officer's skin paled.
What about the Council's authority?
The Council's authority ends where survival begins. Vex Lore watched the new contacts on his display. Send word to the Council. Earth is not to be threatened again. In the vault, Harrison and Webb watched as the Council fleet began its withdrawal. Neither man spoke until the last ship vanished into FTL. They'll be back, Webb said finally, once they analyze all the sensor data. By then it won't matter, Harrison smiled, because now they think we're even stronger than we actually are, and sometimes perception is more powerful than reality. Speaking of perception, Webb gestured to the holographic fleet still hovering in orbit. Should we keep them up as a deterrent? Harrison shook his head. Power them down, but keep the projectors ready. He turned to leave, then paused. And Webb, start working on some new designs. Next time they visit, let's show them something really interesting. Above them, the massive holographic fleet began to fade, each false ship disappearing like morning mist. But in the Council flagship racing away from Earth, Krickstall was already writing his report. Its first line read, "Humanity's capabilities cannot be accurately assessed. Recommend extreme caution in all future interactions." It was, perhaps, the truest thing anyone had written about humanity in the Galactic archives. The Galactic Council chambers erupted in chaos. Hundreds of species representatives shouted, growled, and vibrated their arguments across the vast amphitheater. High Commander Vex Lore stood calmly at the center. His report concluded. "You fled," Elder Dax accused, his crystalline form pulsing with angry red light. "You fled from primitives who only achieved spaceflight 50 years ago." "I fled," Vex Lore agreed, "from a species that concealed their true capabilities for 5 decades, while we arrogantly assumed they needed our protection." In the vault, Harrison watched the Council feed with growing tension. The holographic broadcast showed every detail of the emergency session, including the subtle shifts in body language that his years of diplomatic experience had taught him to read. "They're divided," he murmured. "Look at the clustering. Nearly half the chamber is backing away from the hardliners." Webb barely glanced up from his console. "That's great, but we have bigger problems." He pulled up a diagnostic overlay. "The quantum matrices are destabilizing. We pushed them too hard during the confrontation." Harrison's jaw tightened. "How long?" "Hours, maybe. The projectors were never designed to maintain a fleet this size for extended periods. It'll take a while to repair if it collapses completely." Webb ran his fingers through his already disheveled hair. "If the Council calls our bluff again, they will." Harrison pointed to the feed. "Watch." Krickstall had taken the floor, his sensor data displaying above the chamber. The energy signatures were perfect mathematical constructs. Too perfect. Analysis suggests. The feed cut. Emergency lights bathed the vault in red. "What happened?" Harrison demanded. Webb urgently flicked through dozens of different screens and tabs. "Primary quantum core is failing. The backup grid can't handle the load." He looked up, face pale. "Sir, we're about to lose the entire projection network." Harrison's lips drew tight. "How long to repair?" "Days, maybe weeks." Webb pulled up another diagnostic. "The theoretical models didn't account for quantum degradation at this scale. We need to completely rebuild the containment systems." Harrison's response was cut off by a priority alert. On the main display, Council ships were appearing at the system's edge. Not a small fleet this time. Hundreds of vessels. "They're calling our bluff," Harrison said softly. "Power up the projectors. One last time." Webb shook his head. Sir, if we try to project the fleet now, the whole system will. Do it anyway. Harrison's voice was steel. And get me a channel to Vexlor's flagship. The projectors screamed to life. In Earth orbit, ghost ships flickered into existence, their forms wavering like heat mirages. Webb adjusted settings and optimized what he could with desperation, trying to stabilize the failing system.
Channel open,
a technician reported. Harrison straightened his uniform. High Commander, back so soon. Vexlor's image appeared, all 4 eyes narrowed. Your deception ends now, Admiral. Our full analysis confirms our suspicions. Your fleet is nothing but light and clever energy signatures. Are you certain? Harrison smiled thinly. Certain enough to risk being wrong? Our sensors can be fooled, can be blocked, can be fed false data. Harrison's smile widened fractionally. You only saw what we wanted you to see, High Commander. Would you like to see something new? Webb's head snapped up. Admiral, we can't. Harrison muted the transmission. How long until total system failure? 3 minutes, maybe less. Then let's make them count. Harrison unmuted. Observe, High Commander. He nodded to Webb, who inputted a final series of commands. The holographic fleet rippled, then began to change. Ships merged, transformed, their forms shifting into configurations that defied Council tactical doctrine. Impossible energy readings blazed across Council sensors. By the first light, Crixtall whispered on the Council flagship's bridge.
Sir, these readings, they violate fundamental laws of physics.
Exactly, Vexlor said softly. No one would fake something so obviously impossible unless... His primary eyes widened. Unless the impossible was exactly what they wanted us to think they couldn't do. In the vault, warning klaxons blared as systems began to fail. The holographic fleet flickered, ghostly ships wavering like dying flames. Admiral, Webb called out. 30 seconds to total failure. Harrison kept his eyes locked on Vexlor's image. Still certain about those sensor readings, High Commander? The Council ships had stopped advancing. On their bridges, sensor officers stared in confusion at readings that suggested Earth's fleet was somehow phasing between dimensions, generating energy levels that should have torn reality apart. You're insane, Vexlor said finally, to risk such technology. We're human. Harrison's voice carried absolute conviction. Risk is what we do best. Now, shall we discuss the Council's withdrawal from Earth space? Permanently? The quantum projectors died with a shriek of tortured electronics. The holographic fleet vanished like smoke in a high wind. In the sudden darkness of the vault, Harrison held his breath. Signal from the Council fleet, Webb reported, auxiliary power casting his face in ghostly green light. They're withdrawing again. All of them. Even the outpost stations are being towed away. Harrison sagged slightly. Send a final message to Vexlor. Text only. He dictated. Consider carefully what you think you know about humanity's capabilities, High Commander. Consider even more carefully what you don't know. As the Council fleet retreated, Vexlor turned to Crixtall. Analysis. The Sensor Master's tendrils writhed.
Inconclusive, sir. The readings we gathered, they're nonsense. It's as if they wanted us to know they were false.
Or wanted us to think we knew they were false. Vexlor stared at the retreating Earth on his display. Update the Council records. Classification. Omega-level technological civilization. Approach with extreme caution. He paused. And add a personal note. Never assume you understand what humans are capable of, especially when they're showing you what they're capable of. In the vault, Webb surveyed the burnt-out remains of the quantum projection system. New ETA? This'll take months to rebuild, sir. If they come back before then... This time they won't, Harrison smiled. Because now they think we showed them our deception on purpose, to hide something even more impossible. He clapped Webb on the shoulder. Sometimes the best defense isn't a good offense. It's making your enemy think both your defense and offense are merely distractions from your real capabilities. And what are our real capabilities? Harrison's smile widened. That, old friend, is exactly what everyone will spend the next few centuries trying to figure out, and, in the end, that uncertainty is a better defense than any fleet, real or holographic, could ever be. 3 months after the Council's withdrawal, Harrison stood in the observation dome of Luna Base, watching Earth rise over the crater-scarred horizon. Webb's footsteps echoed behind him. The new quantum core is online, Webb reported. We've solved the stability issues. The projection system can now maintain a fleet twice the size for theoretically unlimited duration. Harrison didn't turn from the view. We won't need it. Sir? Read this. Harrison handed over his tablet. Just arrived from our intelligence network in Council space. Webb's eyes widened as he scrolled through the report. They're disbanding the Tribute Collection Authority? The entire department? Keep reading. New classification for Earth. Technologically ascendant species. Approach with extreme caution. Sir, this is... Webb looked up. They're actually afraid of us. Better. Harrison smiled. They're afraid of what they think we might be capable of. The Council's Intelligence Division has generated over 50,000 pages of analysis trying to determine our actual technological level. And their conclusions? That's the beautiful part. Harrison turned from the window. Every analysis ends the same way. Insufficient data to form reliable conclusions. They've convinced themselves that everything we showed them was an elaborate series of nested deceptions. Webb settled into one of the observation dome's chairs. In other words, they think the holographic fleet was obviously fake. Which must mean we wanted them to know it was fake. Which means we're hiding something else, which they assume must be even more advanced than what we showed them. Harrison's smile widened. The Council's analysts are tying themselves in knots trying to figure out what we're really capable of. But we showed them what we're really capable of, Webb said. The most sophisticated holographic projection system ever created. And they'll never believe that's all it was. Harrison sat across from his old friend. Because they can't conceive of a species choosing to develop defensive technology along such specialized lines. In their minds, if we could create that level of holographic sophistication, we must have developed everything else to at least the same degree. Webb was silent for a moment. The quantum core modification you requested. It's ready. Show me. Webb pulled up a holographic display between them. A new fleet took shape, but these ships were different. Organic curves blended with crystalline structures. Energy patterns shifted and flowed in ways that suggested technologies far beyond even Council understanding. Pattern randomization is built into the base code now, Webb explained. Every projected ship will show subtle variations in power signatures, quantum fluctuations, even simulated crew activity. And the best part, he input a command. The fleet shifted, individual ships merging and separating like liquid metal. They can evolve, change configurations in response to threats, look like they're adapting in real time. Perfect. Harrison watched the display with satisfaction. Because the Council will be back eventually. Not to demand tribute, but to try to understand us, to gauge our capabilities, and we'll show them exactly what they expect to see. Which is? Something they can't possibly understand. Ships that shouldn't be able to exist. Energy readings that defy their physics. Capabilities that make them question everything they think they know about technology. Harrison waved a hand through the holographic fleet, watching it ripple and reform. They'll spend centuries trying to replicate what they think we can do, never realizing that our greatest weapon isn't technology at all. It's psychology, Webb finished. The power of uncertainty. The power of imagination. Harrison stood, moving back to the observation window. Their own imagination turned against them. They'll see what they expect to see, and what they expect will always be more terrifying than the truth. Webb powered down the display. And if they ever do figure it out, realize it was all smoke and mirrors? Oh, then we'll show them something new, something even more impossible. Harrison watched Earth's blue-white curve rising over Luna's horizon. Because that's what humans do best. We don't just create illusions. We make others believe in them so completely that the illusions become more powerful than any weapon. In the darkness of Council space, Crix sat in his private quarters, reviewing sensor logs for the 1000th time. The readings still made no sense, still suggested possibilities that couldn't exist, still hinted at technologies that defied comprehension. His report sat unfinished on his desk. The conclusion refused to come. Every attempt ended the same way. What are humans truly capable of? The answer, he was beginning to suspect, was both simpler and more complex than anyone in the Council could imagine. Because the true power of humanity lay not in their technology, but in their ability to make others question what was possible. And, in the end, that was a power greater than any fleet, real or imagined, could ever provide. In the Luna Base observation dome, Harrison smiled as another Council probe appeared at the edge of the solar system, its sensors probing desperately for answers it would never find. "Webb," he said softly, "power up the projectors. Let's give them something new to think about." Above Earth, impossible ships began to form, each one a masterpiece of holographic illusion, each one a testament to humanity's greatest weapon, deceit. The probe's sensors registered the new contacts. In Council space, analysts would soon be working themselves into a frenzy trying to understand what they were seeing. They would generate theories, write reports, and propose explanations, and none of them would ever guess that humanity's greatest deception was making them believe there was ever something to decode at all.